Where them Catholics at? Yeah. Yo, where them Catholics at? Man, what's the matter with these bishops?
Welcome back, everybody. It's the Catholic Convert Show. And it's a wonderful, what I believe is Thursday, but I can't keep track of the day because I don't have a real job. I get to do stuff like this and talk to you. Well, some of you beautiful people. The rest of you are just kind of backwards. Ed, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. It's Thursday. It is Thursday. I will confirm that. It's,
nice. Okay.
Still hot and humid up here in Jersey, but we're doing all right. And yeah, it's a good day. Good day.
Yeah, we're at our last week, I believe, of the hot weather. So trying to get as much use out of the pool as I can before I close it up for the season. And I don't know about you, but when summer's over, as much as I hate the heat, like I don't like the heat. The reason I get in the pool is because it cools you off. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But every single year, and I've noticed this, as summer starts drawing to a close, you know, the kids, they start up school again, which we homeschool, but, you know, it's the same thing. They're starting up school again, and that free time is over and the year's almost ended. And I don't know. I find myself indulging in voluntary melancholy. Does that ever happen to you? Like, it's not like in a bad way, not oh great, I've got the, you know, what is it called? Oh, the winter blues. You know, it's not like that where people are just vitamin D deficient and they're inside all the time because they're not getting any sun. It's not like that. But when the seasons start changing and leaves are falling, you got, you know, cool, crisp mornings, gray clouds up on the horizon, and it's no longer mist, it's fog, actual fog, not mist from the humidity. And I don't know, it's like a great time for some melancholic introspection.
It certainly is. Yeah, you know what happens is, and it's funny because even if you throw college in there, the last time I had a last day of summer before classes started was still 40 years ago. And you know, but you remember, like, especially when you were a kid and that last night of vacation, you knew you had school the next day, and that feeling when you were laying in bed staring at the ceiling, not wanting to fall asleep because you knew when you woke up it was back to reality, and you had that just that feeling, not even, it wasn't really a feeling of dread. It was, you know, it was melancholy. It was just this blah kind of a feeling, like this changing of the seasons, as you say, and knowing that all the fun you had over the last 2.5 months is now just memories. And it's funny though, because I still get that feeling to an extent today, because you'll notice things that change. Like there'll be a day next week when I'll see school buses now again going up and down the street. I'll see kids standing on a corner waiting for the bus. And or when I go down the shore, it's wild, especially if you go to the shore on Labor Day and then you go the day after Labor Day. It's amazing. You could have two picture perfect days, both of them 80 degrees and sunny, but one of them, the place is bustling. There's tens of thousands of people there. And the next day, it's just completely deserted. It's just so bizarre to me. And it just gives you that same feeling that I had when I was a kid on the night before the first day of school. It's just like not just that something is ending, but something wonderful is ending. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, even I suspect I'll have that melancholy feeling at the end, at least at the end of the summer for a while, because I don't mind when the winter goes away. I actually look forward to it. You know?
Yeah.
But then it does, you know, a week or two into it, I get so used to those 75-degree crisp, clear sky kind of days where I can go to the beach. The water temperature is 72. There's like 5 people a quarter of a mile down the beach, and you can just relax and enjoy. And So I get over the melancholy pretty quickly. But there is that couple of day period next week where I'm just like, another summer come and gone. It's kind of a bummer. And I think of all the things I had every year. I print out a list of what I want to do over the summer, and then every Labor Day I look at it and I've got 3 out of 50 things checked off. So I figured, okay,
Yeah,
we'll leave.
it kind of makes sense if you think about it, that when the seasons start changing and the leaves start coming down and you wake up on those mornings and you can just feel that slight nip. And by slight nip, I mean it's like 65, but you're used to it being 85 at 5 a.m. Right?
Yeah.
And oh crap, it's hoodie weather again already. And I think it makes you more conscious of the passage of time. And with what you just said, you've got 50 things on your list of things that you wanted to do during the summer, and then you look down and I've done 3 of those things. And then somewhere in the back of your mind, there's this, I might not actually get a chance to do any of these things because it's a whole year that just went by and nobody knows what the next year holds. You become more acutely aware of the finite nature of our lives.
Absolutely.
And like I said, I don't look at it in a way that, oh, I'm so depressed, it's gray and dark. Fall is my favorite season. It's the most beautiful season out of all 4. And I like winter. I like it when it's bitter cold and have to have the fireplace going, and I get to throw on my thick, heavy canvas jacket and stomping around outside and sheets of ice trying to keep animals warm. There's something, I don't know, rewarding in just that hardship that you have to go through, right? And for a lot of years, all the way up till now, whenever these seasonal changes come about, not so much from spring to summer, because here in the South is pretty much the same, right? But definitely from summer to fall, because most people don't. It's funny to me because there's so many people that hear, oh, you live in South Carolina. What's it like to not have cold winters? I'm like, what the hell are you talking about, buddy? It was -8 here last December. I'm like, it got colder here than it did in Jersey in some places.
Yeah.
So, but we're right here at the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. And so we get a lot of that cold air coming off. We do miss a lot of the snow because it kind of backstops against the mountains. But now every year as it's coming down and the temperatures are coming down, the leaves are falling, and that melancholic kind of atmosphere sets in, I've noticed it has an effect on my writing. It has an effect on which songs I will leave playing on the radio and which ones I will switch from. And the same as what kind of art I appreciate more. So like my wife, she said, if I was a song, talking about me, if I was a song for every season, well, in summertime, I'm Sweet Home Alabama. Right. But in the fall, I'm There's Something in the Orange by Zach Bryan. It's a great song, right? But you can tell there's an entire melancholic shift with the second one. Right.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I've spoken to so many people who write, so many people who create music, so many artists, and they all say it's the exact same thing. Now, I don't think it's unique to, I don't even consider this myself to be part of this, but the creative types, right? But they do seem to experience it more than most other people, right?
Sure.
And it got me to thinking about the seasons of the church. right out of ordinary time, we're going into Advent.
Yeah.
And then we've got the wonderful, what is it, 2 months, 3 months, 2.5 months of Christmas time. You know,
Sure.
it's just 2 months of rejoicing, and then boom, we're right back into ordinary time again. Or sorry, we know
Yeah.
we've got Lent, and then we've got ordinary time. And that side of it kind of makes sense to me, because Lent is, you know, it's sacrificial, it's penitential, it's a feeling of suffering that you voluntarily undertake upon yourself. And so it feeds into that cold, stark atmosphere, that dead and empty atmosphere of winter. And so, you know, the natural human condition is, you know, people get the winter blues simply because you're not getting as much vitamin D from the sunlight. And so that carrying on right to the beginning of Lent, and you're waiting in anticipation for the joyous return and resurrection of Christ. It's the same as you're waiting for that rebirth when you start to see the leaves on the trees beginning to bud,
Mm.
you know, and the grass slowly shifting from that dead brown back to, you know, that nice lime green, and you feel a little bit more warmth in the morning. And it almost feels like my entire life, and this might seem way too meta for this shallow level of a show,
Yeah.
but it almost feels like that's the way it's meant to be. Where we go through these,
Yeah.
hey, it's summer, we're celebrating Sweet Home Alabama, right? But then as we slowly get into the colder months, the melancholy sets in, because you know what's coming. It's the end of something wonderful. But then, of course, we get that brief joyous occasion around the birth of Christ where we're finally rejoicing. But then as that slowly ends, we're back into that penitential and suffering phase, and we're just waiting in rapt anticipation for that joyous rebirth of both the seasons, the warmth, the green, and of Christ.
Yeah, you know what's interesting though about these, either the actual you know, secular calendar or the liturgical calendar, it's that they keep starting over again. And so just as you're getting through the winter of either, you know, you have something to look forward to. Whereas in our actual physical life, you go through the seasons once and that's it. You know what I mean? So like while we're having this discussion, I'm thinking about it. I'm realizing is that even though I typically think like an 18-year-old, I'm actually probably halfway through autumn as far as life goes. So, you know, it's something, but it's something you have to keep in mind. It's something you have to be cognizant of, because, you know, just as you have to prepare physically for winter, and like, you know, we will have winter in South Carolina and New Jersey at some point a few months from now. You know, you have to be prepared for the winter of your life as well. You know, are you in a good state spiritually? Are you ready for the winter months? Are you ready for what's going to take place when that winter is through? So, you know, here we are. Look at us, a couple of guys all getting very introspective early in the day. You know, it's funny you're talking about music too, and I am very musically driven, I guess you could say. Like any song prior to say 1985 or so, going back into the 60s, every song that comes on, there's a memory that it will bring up with me. And because along with a love of music, I also have one of these bizarre memory traits where I can tell you, like you can tell me, you know, June 15th, 1972, and I'll tell you where I was, what I was doing, what the weather was like. I got one of those weird things. Ask me what I had for breakfast today, and I have no idea. But at about 30, 40, 50 years ago, and I'm all over it. But the crazy thing is that like I'll be driving down the road and a song will come on from 1978, from 1979, from, you know, whenever. And man, all of a sudden I'm back to the memory that I associate with that song. So it's kind of interesting thing about that. But I think there's a reason for it. I think that sometimes we need to reflect on where we've been, and I think that helps us to decide where we want to go. But yeah, but that's also something that I associate with this time of year. I tend to, as we get into the end of summer, early fall, those things like that, like whatever songs playing on the radio, whatever, have more of an effect on me and make me more reflective. I think,
especially
just like
if they're more melancholic as far as the song goes.
Exactly. Yeah, it's amazing the way that happens. Just 2 months ago, I'm not caring about anything. I'm out in the sunshine. I'm having a great time. I'm just loving life. It doesn't matter what song you're playing. It's not going to affect my mood one way or the other. And now that we're winding down, you get that way. But I think it's important. I think we need to be reflective in a number of areas of our lives, and not just when we're feeling melancholy at this time of year. Because if you don't reflect on not only the good things in your past, but also the areas that need improvement, the areas where you've made mistakes, you're bound to just keep doing that again. Just like my list of things I want to do during the summer. It's the same list every summer. When am I going to actually complete that list? Now, in that case, if I don't finish the things on my summer list, nothing's going to happen other than I get a little bit disappointed. But, I think about it and I think, what, in my life, the things that I want to do, the things that I want to accomplish, the place I want to put myself spiritually, I have a list as well. And why aren't I checking things off of it? Or why aren't I checking things off of that list at a better rate? So it's interesting. I mean, time is such a wild thing, right? If you think back, if you think ahead 5 years, you're thinking, oh man, that is so far in the future. I'm not going to worry about that right now. But when I think about 5 years ago, it seems like it was yesterday.
Oh yeah.
You're right. You know what I'm saying? So that's why. So we fall into that trap of, well, I'll get to it. I'll take care of it. And unfortunately, we fall into that trap with our spiritual life. Well, I'm going to turn the corner. I'm going to get rid of these bad habits I have. I'm going to clean up my act. I'm going to get to church more often. I'm going to go to confession more often. You keep saying you're going to do these things. And the next thing you know, it's 5 years down the road, and it's 5 years down the road, and it's another 5 years down the road. And then you are where I'm at, where I mentioned a few minutes ago. Hey, I'm halfway through autumn. When am I going to start doing these things for real? So it's something you really got to think about. You got to jump on it, because winter is coming, my friend. Isn't that a line from? I've never seen the R.R. Martin.
The Game of Thrones. Yeah,
Game of Thrones. I've never seen a single.
What's
episode.
funny is, while you were talking, that's exactly what popped into my head. But I was
right?
I'm not going to show my nerdiness on here until.
No, I know the quote, but I've never seen a single second of any episode of it.
Yeah. No. See, I find that I do most of my introspection during the colder months, because there is a little bit more of an isolation. Now,
yeah.
Some people think I'm weird for this, but I like the Christmas season far more than I like Christmas Day itself on a purely like aesthetic level, right? I've got some fond memories of being at like this little hole in the wall diner called the Honeybee. And I'm on my lunch break, and I was driving a forklift at the time. And it was snowing outside, and there's a wreath in the center of every window. And it's almost that perfect picturesque little ring of frost around the windows with the wreath there. And I hate the Eagles, but that's that one song. Was it Bells Will Be Ringing, Silent Night? It's playing over the speakers. Please Come Home for Christmas. That's the one.
Their version is
it is. And it's playing in the diner, and I'm sitting there by myself drinking a hot cup of coffee and eating a bacon chili cheeseburger. It's just that whole vibe, when you walk down the streets and you see people bundled up and they've got the scarf and the coats and the bell ringers on the corners. It's that whole vibe that if I could live in that atmosphere perpetually, I would.
Yeah.
Right? But also at the same time, as much as I love it, it's still very melancholic. And that's when I do a lot of the self-introspection. And I'm one of those people that I spend a whole lot of time very harshly judging myself for most of the crap that I've done throughout my life. Right? I know I shouldn't as much as I do, but it's kind of just in my nature. And one of the hardest things about me coming to the Catholic Church was, and I had this discussion with my friend who, he's my children's godfather. I had to ask him, I was like, bro, is it too late for me? Because here I am pushing up against the underside of 40, and I've done all these terrible things in my life. I've lied and stole, and I've betrayed people. I've been the antithesis of a good man. Is it too late for me to just come into the church and even expect that God would give me a second glance? That was my attitude. I had to have, it was a very long conversation I had with him about this. And I remember the first time I ever went to confession, and it was with the pastoral vicar. His name's Father Tomlinson, 75 years old, Anglican convert. And I sat there in the confessional, and I've talked about him before. He's got that Clint Eastwood vibe to him where you like, oh man, he just seems like he'd be rough.
Yeah.
And I went in there and I laid out every single thing that I could possibly think of that I've done. And I was so emotional, like more so than I think I've ever been in my life, just laying it all out there. But after my act of contrition and listening to him, and listening to him talk and give me his little spiel, I guess we could call it now, and receiving absolution, and I walked out of that confessional, and I kneeled down in a pew to do my penance, and I just broke, man. I broke. And now this is the second winter that I've been attending the Catholic Church, but this is my first winter as a Catholic in full communion with the church. And as this melancholic kind of feeling starts to set in, the severity of that melancholy hasn't lightened one bit. But the judgments of myself, while they haven't lessened in intensity, they have lessened in volume. And it got me thinking about the whole, because we talked about it on yesterday's show, one of the sacraments, the sacrament of extreme unction, right? That deathbed conversion kind of thing. And it made me think about Timothy McVeigh and the story of him and Father Larry Richards, when he had wrote to him, because Father Richards woke up in the middle of the night. He was like, God, I'm trying to sleep. Stop trying to talk to me and tell me what to do. And he's like, no. And he just felt compelled to write Timothy McVeigh a letter and urge him to go to confession. And actually, he did, right? Now, whether or not he was sincere or any other thing, I don't know. We're not going to get into that.
Yeah.
But that last hour, as long as it hasn't come yet, you still have the opportunity to take as many more shots as you can and stand right back up and keep going. I used to have this very defeatist attitude, believe it or not. Yes, the stubborn guy who will jump on a bull, jump on a bucking horse, or, climb in the ring with absolute monsters. I had a very defeatist attitude, right? And I think I chased all of those things for some kind of personal validation, right? That I could be more than I was because I felt like I was crap, right? But this new hope that I found coming into the church, this new hope of an actual future, or that my efforts aren't futile anymore. It's made it so much easier for me to just shake off a lot of the crap that I would consistently put myself down for. And I think this might be something I can say that some cradle Catholics could experience and would be able to relate to. But I really do think it would probably resonate more with people who were converts, who were like me, came into the church way late, and maybe they were like me. Maybe they had that sense of hopelessness of the hell's the point? I'm already too far gone kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so you just kind of accept your defeat. Whereas now you're rolling with the punches, man. You're just, okay, I took a hit, I get up. I took a hit, I get up. I took a hit, I get up. Why? Because if it ain't good, God's not done.
Yeah.
But that's what's been on my mind this whole past week.
Yeah, I get it. I'm right there with you. And you talk about how you were speaking to your friend and asking those questions. Is it too late? Can I really turn things around? Can I change things? And that's one thing and one thing alone. That's Satan trying to. He's upset. He's angry. He feels he's losing his grip on you, and he doesn't want to let that go. It doesn't matter how you start the race. It matters how you finish the race. And Satan tells you on a daily basis that you are defined by your sins. You are defined by your failures. And unfortunately, we start to believe that, and we focus on that, and we will sit on the couch and think about all that we've done wrong, as opposed to focusing on what is lying ahead and what we still can do right. And that's why prayer is so important, because I say to people all the time, life is continuously going on. You can't put a pin in it. You can't stop it. You can't put it on hold. It's continuously going. So every second of every day is filled with something. It's going to be filled with something positive, or it's going to be filled with something negative. It's not a vacuum. And so if you are not chasing the good, you are allowing a space there for the bad. If you're not sitting there with your rosary, with your prayer book, meditating on the Gospels and things like that, Satan's like, oh, here's my chance. This guy, he's wallowing in misery. He's thinking about his past. He's thinking about what a screw up he is. I'm going to sit next to him, and I'm going to whisper in his ear a little bit. And believe me, I know I have had those moments where I know he's right there on my shoulder, and he's telling me, dude, you are so screwed up. Just give it up. Enjoy the rest of your life. Have fun. It's too late for you. And that's when you've got to open that Bible. You've got to run into the church. You've got to pull that rosary out, and that's when I pull out the big guns. I'll pull out not one of my rosaries. I pull out one of my mom's rosaries, because I know she was very successful using them. And I figure if Satan sees that rosary again, he's not going to be too happy. So, right. But that's what it's all about, is that you cannot, there's that saying, give someone an inch, they take a mile. Man, you give Satan an inch and he's going to take the whole damn highway. You know what I mean? He will get, if you let him get a foot in that door, he is going to open it so stinking wide, it's going to be almost impossible to fight him off. But it is possible. And,
Yeah. And like I said, I distinctly remember that conversation. And what's funny is I didn't even remember that conversation until while we were doing the show, but I do
Mm.
distinctly remember it. I think it's just I haven't thought about it, right?
Yeah.
Even though people ask me all the time, okay, how did you end up converting? What was your conversion story like? Yeah, blah 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 blah. That kind of thing, as if my conversion story is some, you know, great American novel. It's not, you know. It's a great thing, don't get me wrong, and anyone that comes to the church as a convert, that's to
Yeah.
be celebrated, right? It's that one sheep that got away. Christ is going to walk and find you. And if you're
Mhm.
willing to go with him, you go with him and return to the flock. But it's knowing that the summer is ending that gives us this melancholic feeling.
Mhm.
It's knowing that winter is coming that gives us this feeling of isolation and loneliness and despair. But as those months go by and we find ourselves approaching spring, that's when we start to feel hope again. That's when we start waiting in that rapt anticipation for the return of the warm weather and the sunshine and the days on the lake. And my spring came after my first confession.
Mm.
That's when my spring came. When I didn't feel so lost. Because look, I've got good friends, and they're the kind of friends that will tell me when I'm screwing up. But I couldn't tell if he was just trying to make me feel better or not. I was like, okay, I hope he's right, going to mass for the first time.
Yeah.
But man, people, you can take a lot of hits in your life, and this is especially for the people who maybe they're lapsed Catholics, maybe they're on the pathway to being a revert, or maybe they're, super atheist, agnostic, or whatever, but then they have that feeling and they're like, why should I bother? They've got that, they feel the pull, they feel the call that there's something more, that someone's trying to reach them, and that someone is God. But what's the point, man? I've done this, what God would consider a blasphemy or a heresy, whatever, for far too long. What the hell's the point? Why should I even bother changing and coming over? And I mean, I get it. I was there. I felt that. And it's the same as fall slipping into winter. It's like, oh, it's just getting worse and it's just getting worse. And it feels like it's going to last forever and there's no point. But the real truth is that on the other side of that cold, dark, empty winter is this warm and welcoming and bright and fruitful summer and spring that are just right around the corner.
Mm.
And that's because the winter is not eternal.
Mhm.
Not while you're still here, not while you're still alive. It's when you realize that there's still time for a spring. You've still got the opportunity to go through that into spring, and you stop dwelling on those thoughts of what's the point? I've been an atheist or an agnostic or a pretty much nothing burger for my entire life, and I'm 73 years old. What the hell's the point in me coming to church and getting baptized and getting confirmed and receiving communion? What the hell's the point?
Mm.
Well, the point is that's when winter ends, buddy. That's when spring comes. That's when you start to see that beautiful rebirth of everything around you.
Yeah.
And it's an
Yeah.
amazing feeling if you're just willing to believe it for just a second
Yeah.
and follow on that.
No, it is. It's you're making me think about there's been a number of times where I've received prayer requests from people, and they'll say to me, my father is in the hospital, doesn't have a lot of time left. He hasn't been in church in 27 years. When I ask him if he wants, If I want a priest to come visit, he says, no, I don't want that guy coming in here. I'm done with all that nonsense. And, they're going on and on and on. And this person is just says, please, please pray that my father will come back to the church before it's too late. And I take those requests very seriously. And I do pray very fervently for those people, because I think about that. I think about, man, to be at the end of your life, and instead of embracing hope, to lose all hope, and how heartbreaking it is, if not for the person who's going through it, but for the people that are surrounding them and wanting the best for them and wanting them to come back before it's too late. And I don't know. It's you like you say, you're there. Winter is coming. Winter or it's about to close on you, but you're still up to your last breath. Christ gives you that opportunity to come back to Him, and man, I wonder about that sometimes. Like the people that ask me to pray for them in those situations, how many of them? Because sometimes they'll let you know the outcome. Sometimes they don't. They've got a lot going on in their lives at that point. But you wonder, did they make the right choice before they drew their last breath or not? And that's the thing. And because people will say, well, you're telling me that this God of yours, He will forgive you whenever you ask, and if you're legitimately sorry for your sins and things like that, but you can go back and sin again. And I say, well, yeah, but then you have another opportunity ahead of you, and they think that's folly. But I think, man, what a merciful God we have. What an incredible God, that no matter how many times we fall, He's going to reach His hand down to try to pick you back up. And what a shame it is. That's what I really think about. What a shame it is that people who will refuse, there's Christ reaching down to them, and they say, no, I'm done with you. I've had enough of this. Just let me die. It's heartbreaking for me. And these are people that I don't actually even know, but I know them in the sense that I know all of Christ's brothers and sisters, and I want the best for all of them. So it's something, isn't it? That these cycles that you go through in your life, these ups and downs, and not just physically, not just emotionally, but spiritually as well. You go through these cycles and these seasons, and man, you've just got to, whatever you do, whatever decisions you make, don't remove God from the equation, because then you're not going to make it to the next season. It's I don't. It's quite something. And those days when I wake up and I just do not want to pray, I pray because I know I've been there. Because there have been those mornings where I would wake up and not want to pray, and I didn't, and the next thing I knew, it was 3 months later and I still wasn't praying, and that gets a little scary,
Yeah.
And then you are more likely to be that guy in the hospital bed, days away from expiring, who's saying, I don't want a priest in here. I don't want to receive the sacraments. I don't want any of that. So if you want to avoid being that person, you've got to fight it now when you have the strength, when you're a little bit younger and you're built a little bit more resilient, and you can live through and get through those days when you don't want to pray and you don't want to go to church and you don't want to thank Christ for waking you up that morning. To me, one of the things I do in my ministry with the homeless and the little organization I have that we use to try to raise funds for it, Dei Gratiae is the motto, and I, which means by the grace of God. And what I say to people all the time is that everything I am, everything I have, and every breath I take is by the grace of God. And I say that when I wake up each morning, because I want to be reminded that I can't even take that first step out of bed if it's not the will of God, if it isn't from the power that's given to me through God. So if you keep that thought in your head, that every single thing that you accomplish, that you do, that every problem you get through, everything you do is by the will of God, it's by the grace of God, just keep that in mind. Then maybe you're going to be more apt to remember him on a daily basis, and when you're going through good times and when you're going through bad times and when you're struggling, and you're going to be less likely to fall into those issues where you're opening up a door to let Satan come in and take over, and maybe you're going to be less likely to be that guy again at the end of life who's refusing the help of Christ. You've got to remind yourself every day that even the fact that you drew breath that day was by the grace of God.
Yeah, and I think that ties in with that winter phase that you might be going through, whether it's a literal winter or a metaphorical winter, right? So what are the reasons, going back to what I was saying about, I love the vibe and the aesthetic of Christmas when it's cold and gray and you got bell ringers and Christmas lights and wreaths everywhere. Outside, while that's going on, it's so miserable, but there's nothing more lovely than when you pass by that window and you can see that warm, incandescent glow coming from inside, right?
Yeah.
Or when you're cold and you've been outside all day and you get out of the car because you're coming home and that biting wind is at your neck, and then you open that door and you feel that warmth just hit you, right?
Yeah.
It's the same kind of great feeling it is in summer as when you're dying and you open up the door and that rush of the air conditioner hits you, right?
Yeah.
And you feel that relief. But in the winter, when you step into that warmth, it's comfort that you feel.
Yeah.
And if you're in this spiritual winter and it's cold and it's dark and it's gray and it's windy and it's wet and rainy, that embracing warmth of Christ feels so much better.
Yeah.
And it's right there. You just got to open that door.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've got similar memories. I can picture, I'm old enough that the lights on our tree were the real big, like inch long lights,
We
the
had
lights
those.
the lights on our house outside were even a little bigger.
We had those in the 80s.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Because in the 60s and 70s we had them too, and I remember I can picture as though it happened.
They might have been 10 years old when I was a kid in the 80s.
Well, that's
but
true.
We had them.
So, but I can picture sitting there in this tree. We had at some point my dad had bought my mom a baby grand piano. So we had this huge baby grand piano in our house, and it was in one corner, and the tree would always be right next to it. So it's got a good vibe already. Beautiful black baby grand piano, Christmas tree all lit up, and it was by a bay window, and so the curtains were open just enough I could see the lights on the outside of the house. There's the lights on the tree, and I'd be sitting in the chair looking at the tree, and right past the tree is the open window with the snow falling and the lights outside. And man, and it just gives me such a warm feeling even remembering it now. But what I loved about Christmas, as you mentioned, it's not a day. It's not about we have this like 2-month long period, and I used to love the fact that every place you went for that period of time leading up to Christmas and stuff, people seemed a little less angry. They seemed a little nicer. You'd walk into the store, people are, "Hi, how you doing? Merry Christmas," and everything. And it used to drive me crazy. There was a friend of mine who had a child who was born on New Year's Day, and so they used to have a party on New Year's Day, and we a bunch of us there in the house, and you're having great, the trees lit up, everything like that. And as soon as we were done with dessert and stuff, anyone who was still there was required to take part in helping them rip all their Christmas decorations down and box them up and put them away. And I used to be like, no, it's not over. Don't put away the lights and the garland and the tinsel and all this thing, because with that you're putting away those feelings, that warmth, that you're, because I know tomorrow morning you're just going to go back to life, and you're going to go back to the way you were in November, angry and upset and letting every little thing get to you. let's let this live on. Let's hold on to this feeling that we've all developed over the last month and a half. Let's keep it going. And so that's one of the things I love about the Christmas season, is that there's this period of time where everyone is a little bit more willing to let you into their lives, and to be nice, and to be welcoming, and warm, and everything. And I said, well, why can't we keep that going? Why can't we continue that? It doesn't have to end, just like with all the other things we're talking about. Things end when you want them to end, or when you allow them to end. So if you are in good spirits, if you're feeling good about your life, continue with that, regardless of what's going on around you. Keep it going. If you've got that melancholy and you want it to end, then you decide to end it. There's all these things in your life that we have so much more control over than we believe we do. If you could be happy and jovial and nice to people for a month leading up to Christmas, I think you can be that way for 11 months after Christmas, right?
I don't have that much energy, Ed. I just can't do it.
But people, listen, maybe I'm a bad example. I'm like one of those guys that, like, people are like, why are you so happy? I don't like you.
Yeah, that's been the most annoying thing about being your friend.
Right?
I'm like, I could never catch you on a bad day. And I talk to you at least 5 days a week.
Because you know what? And the thing of it is that, and you wouldn't even know. I mean, there could be, obviously I'm a human being. There's times when I'm going through all sorts of crap, but okay, but those things aren't going to tear me down to the point where I'm not willing to climb back up. And so, yeah, I keep that. I keep that, and it's not a show. I'm not pretending. Regardless of what I'm going through, regardless of what other people around me are going through, there's a certain level of joy that's always present in my life, and it's present there because of God, and because of Christ, and because of the gifts that God has given me. It's not, that's, people look at it when they're going through a difficult time. They look at that as though God is taking something away from them, but that's not the case at all. The joys that you have in your life are still present. Yeah, there's some crap you got to deal with too, but you have enough joy in your life that's been granted to you by God to get you through the crappy times. And I guess that's always been my attitude, and why I've always got a smile on my face, and I'm always like everybody's warm and fuzzy best friend, because the tragedy has not yet occurred that's enough to destroy me.
Yeah, it reminds me of those memes where it's like, please, Lord, stop giving me your hardest battles. And and Christ is over here on the other side looking at me. He's like, just literally go outside and look at the sunshine. You're fine.
Exactly. Right?
Like, literally, just stop drinking 15 energy drinks a day. Whatever it is. That's what that reminds me of. But no,
it's true. Yeah,
listen.
Look,
this is going to sound a little, I don't know, masochistic, right?
Yeah.
But I enjoy the melancholy.
There's a place for it.
There's a place for it.
Yeah.
There's something beautiful about it. But I enjoy the melancholy because it's the same reason that I enjoy being outside when it's freezing. It's because I know that warm fireplace that my wife is sitting next to with the kids reading her book is going to feel so much better when I walk into the house. Whereas if I've been in the house all day, I'm like, okay, this fireplace has been going. It's hot, whatever. I need to go outside, whatever. But if I'm outside and I'm freezing and I'm cold and I walk back into the house, you get that feeling of comfort, right?
Yeah.
So I think the lesson in that is where you have to learn how to embrace and accept and be thankful for the hard times, for the difficult things you're going through, and lining that up with what you were talking about with there's always a certain element of joy in your life, and it's by the grace of God that it's there.
Yeah.
I enjoy feeling melancholic in the fall and in the winter because it makes the warmth so much better.
Yeah.
It makes the brightness so much better. It makes the spring so much better, except for when everything is sprinkled with that yellow satanic cocaine pollen. You know, we can do without that.
We could.
But
Listen, but listen, finding that joy and holding on to that joy, and just very quickly, and you've heard the story before, and anyone who's read any of the stuff I've written has seen this before. But my mom exemplified this at all times. I mean, when she was near the end of her life, and this is a woman who had suffered greatly with so many physical ailments, and when she knew she had only had months to live, and we were at Mass one time in West Virginia at my brother's house, and it was 1,000,000 degrees out. My mom's on oxygen, and we're sitting there, and right after receiving communion, and my mom's got tears rolling down her cheeks, and I'm thinking she's in pain. She's exhausted. She's hot. She needs to go inside. And I asked her, Mom, are you okay? We need to go inside and get you out of this heat and stuff. And here's this woman, knowing that she's literally looking at her death coming up, and was most likely was in physical pain at that time. She turns to me and she says, I just received our Lord in the Eucharist. I'm surrounded by the most important people in my life, people that love me dearly. I could never be happier than I am right now. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, whatever this is that she has, I want it. I mean, she knew what was important. She knew what gave her joy. And instead of focusing on the pain, on the heartache, she focused on the joy. Christ came to her in the Eucharist. Christ surrounded her with her family and her loved ones. That was so much more important to her, and it superseded and it blew away the pain that she was in, the fact that she was near death. All that had no consequence to her at all. It mattered not at all to her. She knew what was important, and she held on to that. And that's why she's been gone 20 years. She's still my inspiration. She's the reason I do what I do.
Well, right, but it's because there's a binary aspect to it. Like everything is bicameral. You cannot take any kind of joy in the good without having the bad to have compared it to.
Yeah.
You can't. I mean, you wouldn't even think the bad times were bad times if there weren't good times.
Exactly. You can't have joy without pain.
You can't have joy without pain. And all joy is the result of an equal measure of suffering.
Yeah.
Look at the ultimate joy of Christ.
Yeah.
That equal measure of suffering was him on the cross, his passion. Yeah. And so that's the one thing that got me through almost everything, and to where I could, I can roll with it. I can just keep going. Yeah. Was knowing that it didn't end with the winter, knowing that the spring was coming, was knowing that I wasn't too far gone. And anyone listening to this, you aren't either. You're not too far gone either. Ed's not too far gone if he slips up today and decides to slip up for the rest of his life minus one day.
Exactly.
Right? Nothing you've done so far is too much that you can't come back from.
Yeah.
And as much as I like to be a self-deprecating fool, there's a lot of people out there, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn and brag, but there are people that have done way worse things than I have ever done.
Oh, yeah.
They are not too far gone.
Yeah.
And they won't be until the time runs out.
That's right.
But you can take some comfort in whatever struggle you're going through right now, knowing that when you open that door, the winter's not inside, the winter's outside. And when you walk through that door onto the other side of it, that fire's going, it's nice and comfortable, and you got a warm cup of stew waiting on the stove for you. all the creature comforts you could possibly need are available in your spiritual life as well, because Jesus is waiting on that other side.
Yeah.
He doesn't care what you've done. He's like, just come with me from now on and you're good.
Yeah. Right.
I'll tell you what, this is probably one of the deepest discussions we've had on the show.
I would agree.
It wasn't nearly as lighthearted as a lot of the other ones we've done. Yeah, I didn't even realize I was going this direction until I hit record. But that's how we do everything.
It is, right? And yeah, even strong Catholic men have a heart and do reflect on these type of things. And do
that's
things.
Not true at all.
No, it's not. Yeah. I mean, listen. At least we didn't cry. That's a good thing.
That's true. Men are not allowed to cry unless dad dies, grandpa dies. Well, any loved one dies, your dog dies, or your firstborn child, watching the end of Rudy, or Field of Dreams. Other than that, you're not allowed to cry. I don't care if you shoot yourself in the foot. You're not allowed to cry.
No.
That's
I got
just
shot
the
in the
rule
foot with an
of
arrow.
masculinity.
Right.
I remember that story. You did get shot in the foot with an arrow. What your brother that did it?
My brother accidentally, we were fooling around. I bumped him. He let loose and shot me in the foot. And I ran into the house. Mom pulled out the arrow, wrapped up my foot, and we went off to church because it was Sunday morning.
Right. Yeah. Well, we don't have time for this crap. We don't have time for this crap right now. We got to go to we got to go to mass. Shut up. Get in the car.
We'll try to fend off infection after mass.
Yeah. If you're still bleeding by the time mass ends, we'll take you to the doctor. If not,
you're still bleeding, if you're still alive, we'll take you.
Your mom was probably she's straight gangster. I'm telling you.
Listen, I will tell you this. Here's a great story. My mom, there's two things that really define who my mom was. One, I had never heard her curse my entire life until one time we were both well into our 20s. All of us, I mean, my brother and I were both well into our 20s. And my mom was riding, my brother was riding my mom about something silly. He was just being ridiculous. And his name was John. His name still is John.
Okay.
And she was just fed up with him. And she said, "Damn it, John, be quiet." And because she said, "Damn it," she apologized to each and every one of us for the next 5 years every time she saw us. It was amazing. And the other thing was my mom.
You hold it over her head like you fake some childhood drama over here. Like, well, that time you cussed at us, Mom.
Exactly, right? And we were close to 30, And the other one was that she had this, once we were all grown up, she worked part-time in an office, and her boss was a horrible person. I knew the guy. He was really horrible. And he was just giving her grief day in and day out. And he was going to be going on this 2-week vacation one summer. And my mom, and he said something nasty to her as he's walking out the door at the end of the day. And my mom said, "I hope it rains every day of your vacation," because he was going down the shore. Well, it rained every day for the next 2 weeks. And my mom went to confession over that. She felt horrible.
She felt so bad. Oh, that's awesome.
That's my mom in a nutshell.
That's fantastic.
She was a good one. She was a good one. Yeah. But I think, you know what? I think Jesus did make it rain because she asked him to.
She's like, "I felt so bad. I had to go to confession." Oh, man. That's a great story.
Yeah.
Well, all right. We made it to the end, and we got one more day to go before we can stop torturing these poor watchers and listeners. But we'll wrap it up. So thank you all for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show. And if not, I promise I will put in the exact same amount of effort tomorrow.
God bless everybody.